All right, so let's do the same thing as we did for sine. You are going to go to decimals, and then you're going to graph y equals cosine x. You're going to copy and paste the graph. And what we want to do is see how different it is from a sine graph. Okay, so you want to copy and paste the graph. Now, let's take a look at this cosine graph. And let's answer a few questions. This is y equals cosine x. What is the amplitude of this graph? What is the amplitude of this graph? 1. Right? It's the same thing as before. It is for sine, it is 1. So you can see this is 1. So again, amplitude is from the middle to the top or the middle to the bottom. So amplitude is 1. So we're going to write a equals 1. What is the period on this graph? Period, like I mentioned before, is from the top or highest point to the highest point, so maximum to maximum or minimum to minimum. So how long is the period? How long is the period? It might be a little harder to see on my graph because it's so small. You can look at yours. How long is the period? 2 pi, very good. So it's from my graph, it's easier to see the bottom to bottom or minimum to minimum. That is 2 pi, so that is period. Domain and range. What is the domain on this graph? What is the domain on this graph? All real numbers. And then what's the range? What is all the possible y values?
-1 is less than or equal to y, which is less than or equal to 1.
Yes. So let's write all that down. Amplitude is 1. A is 1. Period is 2 pi. Domain is all real numbers, and then range is -1 to 1. And we want to include -1 and 1 with the equal sign, less than or equal to, because it does touch -1 and it does touch 1. All right. Now let's go back to decimals, and if you can, let's graph sine and cosine on top of each other. All right, looking at the sine and cosine graph, let's see. Let's have you guys give me one similarity. Someone raise their hand and tell me one similarity. Yes, Luke.
Same amplitude.
Same amplitude? Someone else? Similarity? There seems to be more similarities than differences. Suhani? Same period. They both have 2 pi. What else is similar? That's it? Okay, what's something that's different? Viola? Starting point is different. Can someone tell me how they are different? How the starting point is different? Yeah. Yeah, so sine starts at 0, 0. Cosine starts at 0, 1. Okay, that's a very, very important part. We need that for graphing later. Can you guys tell how far apart are they? Like, I can almost push one graph in it so they would all line up with each other, right? How much do I have to push? How much do I have to translate? How much do I have to move it? 1 over? By how much in the x direction? Pi over 2. Pi over 2 which direction though? Left for one of the graph, right? And then we can also do the same for the other one by pushing it 3 pi over 2. But we'll talk about that later when we go to the translation section. So essentially, sine and cosine are exactly the same. You just need to push one to translate on top of the other. All right, so now we can see that they are very similar because they both have this a and b in the equation, and that's why they have very similar amplitude and period. All right, so it's the same thing as before. Sine and cosine, almost exactly the same. To find the amplitude, you find a. To find period, 2 pi over b. Okay, so let's go ahead and have you just practice. Which one is sine and which one is cosine? All right, let's start with this one, top left. Let's start with Tyler. What graph is this one, sine or cosine?
Sine.
Good. and then let's go to this one on the right. Ryan, which one is this one? Cosine. Okay, and then let's go to this one, bottom left. Aaron? Good. How do you know this one is sine? Yes, it starts at 0. And then Suhani, this last one. Cosine. Good. All right, now let's go ahead and look at this graph, and we are going to write an equation. Sorry about that. This is 1 and this is -1. First of all, look at this equation and ask yourself, is this sine or cosine? Cosine, because it starts on the top instead of 0, 0. What is the amplitude? What is A? 1. B is a little bit hard. Let's start with period. How long is the period? How long does it take to get from one peak to the other peak, or one minimum to the other minimum? Pi over 2. Okay, so this is pi over 2. So from here, we're going to go backwards and calculate the period. So that is equal to 2 pi over b. Cross multiply. So pi b equals 4 pi. So b is 4. All right, the last thing you want to do is just double check, is this cosine starting on the correct place? You know, cosine should start on the top. Is it on the top or is it on the bottom? Because if it's on the bottom, we have to do something about that. Top? Okay, so that is a normal cosine. So this is going to be y equals cosine 4x. Okay, if it starts on the bottom, we have to put a negative. All right. Let's go ahead and have you guys practice ABC. You're going to assume that A is greater than 0 for A and B, because it just told you amplitude. It doesn't really tell you where it starts, but you're going to assume A is greater than 0 just for A and B, and then C is look at a graph and write an equation. Let me know when you're done. Okay, A is pretty simple. The answer is y equals 3 cosine x. B is a little bit hard because the period is 3, so that is 3 equals 2 pi over b. 3b is equal to 2 pi, and that means b is equal to 2 pi over 3. So don't assume that b is only a number without pi, okay? So if you do solve and it ends up having a pi in there, that's okay. Just keep it. So don't just take pi out. Okay, so this is y equals 0.3 cosine 2 pi over 3x. Okay, please make sure you keep the 2 pi over 3 in there. Okay, C, what you want to do is look at the amplitude. The amplitude is 2. The period looks like 3 pi. So B is going to be 2 over 3. And this cosine does not start on the top. It starts on the bottom, which means this is going to be a negative. So y equals negative 2 cosine 2/3 x. All right, last part. We are going to graph. So hopefully you're familiar with graphing sine. So this one, it will be really easy. Okay, the same thing as should we do this? Yeah, we should do this. Okay, so you are going to look at A and B. You're going to figure out the amplitude, the period, and range. Range means all the possible y values, right? All the possible y values. What you're going to do is just think about your amplitude. What's the highest it can go? What's the lowest it can go? That's going to be my range. Do you guys need me to do one? No, you guys are good. Okay, all right, A and B. All right, for A, amplitude is 2, period is 2 pi, and the range is between -2 to 2. So basically, it's the amplitude, right? It's the amplitude in this case. I want to make sure I'm clear. It's the amplitude in this case because we're starting at the middle. Later on, when we actually shift this up, it could shift so far up that it's not really going to have too much. I mean, the amplitude does matter, but because we shift it up so much, we have to look at where it's oscillating. Okay, so please be careful of that later. Right now, it is just the plus minus of the amplitude because we're starting at 0. All right, amplitude. 0.4. Please don't put negative 0.4 because amplitude is a length, so it has to be positive. Period is pi, and then this is range is between negative 0.4 to 0.4. All right, let us graph. Okay, it is the same thing as before, so you guys wrote down some really good notes on how to graph. First, find your A, B, and period. A, B, and period. And then what you're going to do is you're going to draw one period, and then you're going to divide it into fourths, and then you're going to sketch. This time, because it's a cosine graph, you're going to remember it goes down, 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 up, up. So it's different from sine. Sine, we went up, down, down, up. This cosine graph is going to go down, down, up, up. So let us try. Okay, let's find A and B and period. Okay, what is A of this graph? 1.5, good. What is B? 2, very good. And then period is 2 pi over B, so that is pi. All right, let's draw our axis. This one period is pi, so we're going to break this into half. Break it into half again. Okay, so draw one period, break into half, and then break into fourths by taking the half and half it again. And then what you want to do is just label your amplitude, 1.5, negative 1.5. Okay, so some people like to draw this without any kind of guidelines. It is no good because you will start drawing random things. And once we start translating, it's impossible to draw this out if you don't label. So what I'm saying is please draw your points, the 5 points before you actually start. Okay, this is cosine, so it's going to start on the top because there's no negative. And it goes down, down, up, up. So every one of those marks that you made will have a point. Okay, you're not going to skip any marks, so kind of keep that in mind. If there was a mark you drew, it has no point on there, then you have to say like something is wrong. Well, I skipped over something. Okay, now you make this dip. Okay, this is one cosine cycle, and then you can do the same thing on the other side if you want to complete another period. For example, this one, sketch 2 cycles of this graph. Let me kind of help you get started. What is A of this graph? 2. Tricky one. What is B? 1 over 3. Okay, if you cannot see that, this theta over 3 is really 1/3 times theta. Okay, so this is 2 cosine and then 1/3 times theta, so B is 1/3. Okay, period is going to be 2 pi over 1/3. And then you gotta do some complex fractions stuff. Do you guys think you can do this? Don't need me to help you? Okay, so try it. Yeah. Okay, I will help you label it at least. Okay, so this is going to be 6 pi. 6 pi, and I'm just going to help you label the amplitude, and then you're going to do the rest. Okay, once you graph it, let me know. Okay, so half of 6 pi is 3 pi. Half of that is 1.5, or 3 over 2. And then half of that is 4.5. Okay, we want to draw 2 cycles, so it doesn't really matter which way you go. I like to go to the left. You can keep going to the right if you want. I'm going to put negative 6 pi here, negative 3 pi, and then half of that. This is a normal cosine graph, so we're going to start on the top, down, down, up, up. And then same thing on the left, down, down, up, up. So that completes 2 cycles. All right, the last part, you do have to use decimals. And on the test, you're not going to have decimals, but I will just give you some graph. So the question is, what are all the solutions to 3 cosine 2t equals -2? And then we kind of did this before. How do you solve equations? What does solving equations really mean? It means that we can think of this part as one equation of itself. And then on the right, it's another equation of itself. And we're saying, where do they intersect? At what point does it intersect? And what is the x value that intersects? And that's going to be where the solution is. Solution is just where do both sides meet at the same place. And then so what you can do is think of this side as an equation, this side as an equation. So what you're going to do now is we are going to figure out where they intersect. So we are going to use decimals and graph both and figure out where they intersect. So the answers are here and actually at these t values. Okay, sorry about that. Oh, I wrote the wrong thing. Okay. Okay, here's the correct answer. 1.15, 1.991, 4.292, and 5.133. So I didn't put 2t. I think I only put 2, right? Yeah, so then there were 2 more points that intersect. These are the correct answers.